In part 3 of How the Poor and the Rich Behave Differently, one of the things I see with the poor mentality, poor behavior I should say, is they refuse to reflect and see what works. They try newer and newer systems without results, then complain by the lack of results. Okay? There's one question really that drives basic success. What's worked in the past, right? Why would you try something completely different if you already have a system that's worked in the past? It makes no sense. In the example of John and Jason, John complains to his manager that his $7.50 an hour isn't that much. He tries to get a raise, fails, then complains to other employees. Okay, that didn't work. Complaining to a manager didn't work, right? By the way, in some examples, in reality, people get fired because of their complaining. Okay? The rich identify what works, then do more of what works, and repeat the process. Okay? Jason, in this case, asks for a raise and doesn't get it. So he gets the same outcome as John. The difference is, instead of complaining, he looks for other jobs, and after a few failures, so he fails even more, he doesn't get the new jobs, he lands a new job that pays $9 an hour. So now he's getting paid $1.50 more an hour than John is. Throughout the rest of the examples, we're still going to use a $7.50. But this is an example of how Jason is growing and learning through reflecting by identifying what works. The most important thing you can do with your time each week is spend at least an hour reflecting about the past week and what worked and what didn't work. It's a simple investment of your time, but it's just looking at what worked this week and what didn't work. Okay? And I saw this time and time again at the bank. I could always tell, based on this, who was going to end up going on and becoming rich, based on who was changing their behavior, based on what worked and who didn't. Okay? Another thing, how the poor and the rich behave differently. The poor feel secure when they're like others. They mimic, follow, and compare their action to or of, of and with others. Right? Good example of this, though, one of the earliest examples of this that I can see in, at least in reading, is in the Bible in 1 Samuel 8. The children of Israel want a king. And the reason why they want a king is because all of the other nations of the world have a king. Even though the way that 1 Samuel, if you read the book of Samuel, it's written is that God appoints a judge, not a king. But the children of Israel don't want a judge. They want a king. Why? Because that's what everybody else has, is a king. And for those of you who've read the story know that the king ends up being worse than the judge. The judge setup was a lot better than the king. But anyway, it's a very early example of that. You see this in America, like Keeping Up with the Joneses, right? They have a big house, I got to get a big house. And we kind of joke around and talk about that. A lot of times this is from the perspective of trying to be cool. There's this perception that other people have something that I don't have, and I want to be like that. I use the word cool, but that's usually what it is, or secure, or safe, or whatever it is. These individuals feel secure when they're like other people. They try to mimic, follow, and compare their action with others. The rich, by contrast, feel secure when they live and act consistently with the values they construct and know that they value. Okay, it's a case in point at the bank. I immediately knew which kind of individual I was talking with. Person would call in, they wanted an auto loan. And they're like, I'm going to buy this new car, it's $30,000. And I would ask one question, be like, I'm just curious, have you looked at the alternative, which is take some of the money that you've saved, and instead of borrowing any money, just take some of the money you saved and buy a used car, and that way you don't have this huge expensive new auto loan. The poor would always be like, well, everybody else has a new car. The rich would be like, wait, huh, what? What, I can do what? Well, you can, take the money that you save, and then you don't have to spend, you don't have to borrow money and, basically make the bank all kinds of money. You can save money that you want and just buy a used car. You don't have to pay any interest or whatnot. Now, some rich people do value new cars. There's nothing wrong with that. But they know that they value that. And they're not going to say, well, but everybody else is buying a new car, right? They're not going to say that because it doesn't matter what other people are doing. They know that that's what they value, which, by the way, I disagree with people who say, what is it, that it's bad when people buy BMWs or whatnot. No, there are many rich people I know that buy BMWs and Teslas and Mercedes, but they know they value that. That's the point. They're not doing it to impress others. They're doing it because that's something that they actually value. They're also not borrowing money when they do that. They're spending their own cash. So in the example of John and Jason, again, Jason saves for his future because he's preparing for his future. He knows that he's going to come there. That's a value. He wants to be well prepared in his future. John, by contrast, aims to be cool and does so through financial means. So whether that's buying the cool clothes, or whether that's buying the cool car, or borrowing money and buying a cool car, the bottom line is that John aims to impress others, while Jason, he saves and he prepares for his future because that's what he values.